Before we get started, please go over to Amazon.com and grab a copy of my book, Education and Justice. If you have an African-American son in public school, you need this book because I teach you the many ways that public schools mistreat African-American boys and what you can do to help your son. So go over there and get your copy immediately. Folks, I got to be completely, totally, and brutally honest with you. Our democracy is in grave danger. Our democracy is in grave danger. If we don't fight back, it will not survive. And I spent all of 2024 warning you of this. I warned you. I told you in nearly every video that we were facing an existential threat, not only as a nation, but we as a people. Our democracy is in danger. Now, some of you, I'm sure, felt like the truth was sort of heavy for you to carry, for you to bear. And you wanted me to sugarcoat it, to make it sound funny, to make it sound not so serious. No, I'm an attorney. I know how serious this is. You don't go to the doctor's office and he see a spot on your lung that he believes is cancer, and you all sitting there and laugh and joke and he doesn't tell you the truth about it. No, you're facing an existential threat to your health. It would be malpractice of him or her not to be brutally honest with you and what you need to do to correct your situation. Well, I'm a professional as well. I take this seriously. But don't take it from me. You don't have to believe me. What about a sitting United States Senator? What about Senator Chris Murphy? He said some things recently in an interview that confirms all that I've told you. He knows a whole lot more about what's going on inside the government than I do. Let's go to Senator Murphy.
What I'm telling you is that if we continue to observe norms, if we continue to engage in business as usual, this democracy could be gone. I don't think we have a year to save American democracy. I think the way the president is acting, using law enforcement to target dissidents, harassing TV stations and radio stations that criticize him, endorsing political violence, puts our democracy at immediate risk. So if you are a Democrat in the Senate or in the House, you have to start acting with urgency. And that is the conversation that we have to start having inside our caucus.
Our new NBC News poll, as you just saw, shows the Democratic Party at an all-time low approval rating. Why do you think Democrats are failing to connect with Americans at this critical moment of urgency, which you describe?
Well, it's what I just talked about. I mean, I think Americans want the Democratic Party to stand up and fight and to take risks. Listen, I understand that had we gone into a shutdown, even for a handful of days, it would have been difficult. But it would have sent a message that the Democratic Party is not going to be bullied by Donald Trump. We are not going to let them write spending bills unilaterally that cut programs for people we care about, that give the president new and extraordinary power. I think Democrats in this country, but I think the broad middle of the public as well, want to see our party fighting in exceptional ways. That is the conversation that has to happen inside of the Democratic Party, inside our caucus. And if we don't get that right, if we continue to work with Republicans, if we continue to hand Donald Trump more power, we are going to lose our democracy.
All right, you just heard a sitting U.S. Senator say, if we don't push back and refuse to accept what Trump's doing, our democracy may not last another year. Now, that's not fear-mongering. That's not hyperbole. Those are the facts. I've been warning you myself for at least a year of the threat that Trump and MAGA and the technocrats pose to our country. And as an attorney, I have spent several decades studying and practicing the law. So I know when the foundation of our country, our nation is being unraveled from within, because our country's foundation is the law. It is the Constitution, federal statutes, regulations, and so on. So I'm telling you, and I have been telling you, that it's being unraveled right in front of our eyes. And many other lawyers, many black lawyers around the nation who are not a part of MAGA, people like Michelle Obama, Kamala Harris, Jasmine Crockett, and many others have been sounding the alarm. Because we know what all this means. We know that they are unraveling the very foundation of our democracy, which is the Constitution, the rule of law. And that's weakening the country. And it's posing a serious threat to our democracy. And it's the reason why so many of us seem to be so agitated all the time. And then if you couple my legal knowledge with the fact that I've read Project 2025, you can understand why sometimes I barely can sleep at night. And on top of all that, I know what the Bible says about the end times. And it's the reason why I spent all last year warning you that America would be in deep trouble if Trump was reelected. I told you also African Americans would suffer the most. Still, Trump was reelected with the vote of black people giving him the winning edge and other blacks who set out the election. Several weeks after his victory, if you recall, I made a video warning you that dark days were ahead. That was before Trump was sworn in, and what have we seen? Darkening days, and we still got almost 4 years left. I was referring to the fact that Trump is an existential threat to our democracy. Well, my predictions, my deep concerns for our democracy and for us are happening every day, every single day. Despite what I know about Trump, however, I've tried to keep my videos uplifting and hopeful and so on, because I know you feel anxious, weary, tired. As I just said, I do too. But I got to tell you the truth. I got to tell you the truth, whether you love it or hate it, whether you don't want to hear it, whether you want to put your hands over your ears, cover your eyes, whatever. I got to tell you what's coming, what's happening. And again, that truth is we, Americans, all Americans, but especially us African Americans, we're in deep trouble. We're losing our freedoms that our ancestors fought so hard for. We're losing them. Trump's taking them away. That's because our democracy is barely hanging on. Now, I want to read a portion of a book for you, and it sort of lays things out as well. Let's go to that book. But the old businesses are so profitable that big tech dominates the economy in a way that Rockefeller could have hardly imagined. Harvard historian Jill Lepore says of Elon Musk, quote, he sees himself as above the presidency, close quote. The technocrats have left us with a feeling that there is no alternative to the future they are offering us. But history is not a linear progression toward a technological utopia. In fact, as historians like Arnold Toynbee and Edward Gibbon have written, history is a cyclic process of genesis, growth, breakdown, and disintegration. We already know that history repeats itself because there's nothing new under the sun. American democracy is in danger of breakdown. Peter Thiel has said, quote, I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible, close quote. The libertarian choice of the technocrats, freedom over our democracy, puts not only our country at risk, but also our planet. Now, who is Peter Thiel? Peter Thiel is one of Trump's billionaire buddies. He's one of the so-called tech bros or technocrats. And he reportedly bankrolled J.D. Vance's political career. So he is definitely connected with Trump and J.D. Vance. And he said You saw it yourself. He said, I no longer believe that freedom and democracy are compatible. So you got that kind of person in the ear of the United States president, saying that democracy and freedom are not compatible. You see what I'm saying? And that's the reason why, one of the biggest reasons why our democracy is in such trouble. Trump and MAGA and these technocrats are replacing our democracy with a fascist technocracy under the authoritarian rule of Trump. It's a dictatorial, authoritarian rule that Trump oversees. And the form of government, it seems, that they're trying to establish is a fascist, again, technocracy. And blacks and people of color don't fare well in ultra-nationalist fascist countries. The fascists tend to use efforts like Trump's DEI war to wipe us out, to wipe out our contributions, to wipe out our memory from the national consciousness, or at least to disregard it, such as removing the names of blacks, Latinos, and females from the Arlington National Cemetery records. How heinous that is. Again, it's just pure fascism. And thanks to the United States Supreme Court, no American president has ever had the power and authorities that Trump has. And that's what makes this moment so different. Trump, MAGA, and the, again, technocrats and their money seems intent on using Trump's power and his authorities to destroy our democracy and transform America into a fascist technocracy. They've decided apparently that democracy is an impediment to their white nationalist technocracy oligarchy. They're literally reshaping America. They're picking it apart, weakening our institutions. And they said they would do so in Project 2025. Again, and I'm going to keep saying, I warned you repeatedly last year about Project 2025 and the intentions of these folks. Now, the institution or branch of government that is most problematic for them is the legal institution, specifically the judicial branch, the judges and the lawyers, people like me and others, because we know what's happening and we are communicating it to you as I'm doing now. That's what makes Donald Trump so different and so dangerous. His administration isn't just going after political dissidents, his political opponents. It's taking direct aim at lawyers and law firms that represent his political opponents. I mean, for the first time in U.S. history, a sitting president is weaponizing executive power to punish legal professionals for merely doing their jobs. Just for doing their job. Just for representing people. Now let's break down how Trump is actively intimidating lawyers, or at least trying to, and why that's so unprecedented, and what this means for the future of our democracy and what it means for you. Now let's start with the basics. The U.S. legal system is built on a simple principle. Everyone deserves a defense. Everyone deserves a lawyer when they've been accused of anything. Everyone. Trump had his lawyers. Other defendants have their lawyers. Okay? It is the bedrock of the rule of law. So that means lawyers have to be free to represent people without fear of political retribution. But Trump is trying to change that. Instead of debating policies or arguing his cases in court, he's using his immense presidential powers to punish lawyers who take cases against him. Here's what's happening. Now, I want to show you a couple of law firms here that he has targeted. So there are three: Perkins Coie, LLP, Covington and Burling, LLP, Paul Weiss, Rifkin, Wharton, and Garrison, LLP. So he's gone after all three of these law firms, all three of them, and a single lawyer. And these are some of the most powerful law firms in the country, and they have something in common. You know what that is? They all represented cases Trump doesn't like. All right, now let's go law firm by law firm. First, Perkins Coie LLP. On March 6, 2025, Trump signed an executive order revoking security clearances for Perkins Coie's attorneys, banning them from even entering federal buildings. So you got to ask why. Why would a sitting president do that? Because they were involved in the Steele dossier, and they have ties to the Democratic Party. That's it. And you know what that is? That is just straight up political revenge. And then there's Covington Burling LLP. And back in February of this year, Trump's administration issued another executive order targeting this law firm. And it was because some of their attorneys had worked with special counsel Jack Smith, who was leading investigations and prosecutions involving Trump. That's right, Trump is actually retaliating against anyone connected to the people who were investigating him. And then that brings me to Paul Weiss, Rivkin, Wharton, and Garrison LLP. Most recently, on March 14th, that was just a couple of days ago, 2025, Trump went after this law firm by suspending their security clearances and terminating their federal contracts. This firm was involved in pro bono work related to the January 6th and some immigrant rights cases. So Trump wants to send a clear message. He wants to send a clear message to law firms and lawyers. If you work against him, you'll pay for it. If you work against him, you'll pay for it. Well, you may say, yeah, but come on now, Mr. Corbett, presidents have always had political enemies. Well, that's true. In fact, Nixon had an enemies list. The FBI's COINTELPRO program spied on civil rights attorneys. I'm well aware of that. But even those weren't as direct as what Trump is doing today. Here's the difference. Trump isn't just harassing or surveilling lawyers. He's using his immense executive power to financially ruin law firms that challenge him. Okay? And he's not stopping there. His administration is also pushing courts to force lawyers and plaintiffs to pay massive legal fees if they bring lawsuits against his policies. This isn't about justice. This is intimidation. And why does it matter to you? Well, there are two reasons. Two very important reasons. First, when we lawyers are too afraid and intimidated to take cases, people lose access to the justice system. If Trump can scare top law firms into breaking down and backing down, what happens to the smaller firms? What happens to everyday Americans who need legal representation? But no lawyer will take the case because of fear of Trump. If Trump gets away with this, what stops future presidents from going after your lawyer because your case is unpopular? So that's the first reason. The second reason is if Trump can silence lawyers and law firms, then there'll be no one to activate the third branch of government, the court system, the judicial branch. You see what I'm saying? And it's the judicial branch, it's the judiciary or the judges that are holding Trump accountable, holding him at bay for now. But it takes lawyers to get the judges involved. Without lawyers filing cases, the judges cannot get involved. Judges cannot, or at least are not supposed to get involved in mere political issues. There has to be some case and or controversy for them to get involved. Now, legal experts are already fighting back, okay? For example, Perkins Coie has filed a lawsuit to block Trump's executive order, and a federal judge has already temporarily halted some of the actions, saying that they likely violate the First Amendment and due process clause. So bravo for that judge. The American Bar Association and civil rights groups are condemning these actions, calling them a direct attack and an affront to the rule of law. But here's the thing. Trump's base doesn't care about that. In fact, they love it. They see it as Trump fighting back against the so-called deep state. That's why this is bigger than just Trump. There's a whole movement out there that applauds him as he does these things, these anti-democratic things. But the fight is not over yet. Here's what we need to do. First, as I've said before, we need to flip Congress. We need to flip Congress. If we can survive our democracy until the midterm, we must flip Congress. And I've showed you in other videos that we have the numbers to do it. There were approximately 17 million African Americans who did not vote. Hopefully, they're seeing that that was a mistake. Hopefully, they will see even clearer over the next years from the things that Trump will do that that was a serious mistake. So first, we need to flip Congress. Second, we need to spread the word. Most Americans have no idea this is happening. Have no idea because they don't understand what's really happening. Did you notice a little while ago that I actually read you something from a book? A lot of Americans don't read, and that's why they don't know what's happening. So you have to talk about this. You have to share this video. Talk about this with your family and friends so that they are informed. Third of all, support legal organizations that fight back. Groups like the ACLU, NAACP Legal Defense Fund, and other civil rights organizations. Okay? So as I've said already in this video a couple of times, we're in dangerous territory. This isn't even about politics anymore. This is about whether we value and favor our democracy or whether we want to become a technocracy with Trump as an authoritarian type of dictator over the country. It's our choice. It's up to us. All right, so please make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated. And I'm telling you, please hit that notification button so that you'll get notified every time we send these videos out. Also, like, share, and comment. Tell me what you're thinking. Okay? All right, stay vigilant, stay informed, stay defiant, and most of all, stay woke.